Hi guys, welcome to Multiverse. When I made my Batman Lantern video, someone suggested, seeing how I had a few Green Lantern armories in my Green Lantern base, someone suggested if I could make a Green Lantern costume video. And I thought it was actually a pretty good idea. There's quite a few different looks we can reproduce for various Green Lantern characters. So let's take a look at those. So we're going to start with the Scion of Iron set of gear. Oh, so this is the pretty much the first Green Lantern set of gear we got in this Universal 9. There's a few other Green Lantern related pieces of gear we got at some point. I'll show them to you in a bit. But early on, we couldn't really reproduce our friend Green Lantern. I could show it a bit. Like we had the Green Lantern Hoody, and that pretty much was all we had if we wanted to recreate a Green Lantern character. We did not even have a green aura for a long time. So the very first set of gear we got, where we had an official Green Lantern emblem, and we could recreate a pretty darn good Green Lantern character, was with the Scion of Iron. It's a tier 5 set of gear that you can get. Once you reach tier 5 at combat rating 84, I think, you gain access to Mogo. And within Mogo, there is a vendor that will sell you the Scion of Iron set of gear. It's a pretty nice looking set of gear. It doesn't really look like Green Lantern, but as you can see, the chest piece works well enough to be able to reproduce a pretty good classic Green Lantern character. And for the aura, obviously I'm using the latest green aura we got, which is called the Glowing Aura. So pretty much everything you see here is the Scion of Iron set of gear. Again, it's a tier 5 set of gear. So sadly, in the past, if you wanted to create a nice Green Lantern character, you had no choice. You had to wait until you reach a tier 5 before you could purchase this chest piece and have an official Green Lantern emblem for your Green Lantern character. And as you can see, there's even also a back piece with a nice Green Lantern emblem, which I will use in quite a few looks, as you are going to see. Another set of gear that was inspired by Green Lantern was the Energy Armor. It doesn't really look like any Green Lantern we ever saw. As far as I know, I don't remember seeing a Green Lantern that looked like that. But it was sort of an armor that you could sort of pretend that was created using the green energy of your Green Lantern ring, if you wanted to. Also, it has one of the few things we rarely have. It has an emblem that is like offset to the side. Here I cheated a bit. I'm using the Spindrift shoulders in order to be able to have extra lantern emblems. There's two reasons for that. The main reason is that basically this right here is pretty much an odd mixture of the elite armor, of the energy armor, and the elite version of the energy armor. Basically, I don't have the whole armor just yet on this character. So this is pretty much a mishmash of the energy armor, of the elite version of the energy armor, and of the, as you can see, the Spindrift shoulders. So as you can see, the armor itself has a few placements for the emblems, like the back piece and the chest piece. Both can have a nice Green Lantern emblem. And for the shoulders, again, I had to cheat and use the Spindrift. Obviously, the Green Lantern emblem does not come with this suit. Basically, whatever emblem you equip with your character, that's what you're going to see on your nice energy armor. And I cheated a bit. I'm using the Kryptonite Aura. As you can see, the Kryptonite Aura is a nice aura that can sort of mimic a Green Lantern aura if you really want to. And next, let's take a look at our friend Alan Scott. I could make a whole video just with Alan Scott and a whole bunch of different ways that you can recreate Alan Scott. I'm just going to look at two versions in this video, but I'll probably make, when I get a chance, I'll probably make a follow-up with a whole bunch of ways that you can reproduce our friend Alan Scott. Here I'm using the Ra's al Ghul back piece. It works really well to be able to reproduce the big collar that Alan Scott had. Freddie Emblem, this is the official Alan Scott emblem. Although ironically enough, it's not really. It's the Earth 2 Alan Scott emblem from the New 52. I wish we could have had when they first announced that we would get the Alan Scott emblem. I thought we would get the classic Alan Scott emblem. Sadly, this is what we got instead. So you have a choice. Either you can use the New 52 Alan Scott emblem, or you could decide to just use the Green Lantern emblem. Both options works fine. And we do have also an official pair of Alan Scott boots in this Universe Online. The easiest way to get those boots, just buy them from the broker. They're usually not very expensive. There is a mission that you can farm and farm and farm, but you have to be a villain player in order to be able to farm that mission. So again, the easiest way would be just buy the boots from the broker. For the belt, any number of belts would do. I'm using the clasped belt. And for the pants, there's a whole bunch of pants that could do. Here I'm using the retro pants. And of course, I'm using the Stalwart Defender chest for two reasons. First, it allows me to have the biggest emblem you can in this Universe Online. And also, Alan Scott isn't wearing any gloves traditionally. So it's one of the few chest pieces where the hands do not have a glove and where the hands are not covered by the chest piece. And for the aura, I'm using the Emerald Misted Aura. It's one of the nice, I mentioned that in a previous video. Basically, in order to recreate a nice Green Lantern character, there is a handful of green auras that you can use. I'm going to look at a few of those in this video, and there's a few that I don't have with this character. Ah, poor Crypto. Here we have the Kingdom Come Alan Scott armor. For some reason, when Alex Ross made the Kingdom Come comic, he did not want to use Kyle Rayner, who was Green Lantern at the time. So he decided to go all the way back and use Alan Scott instead. And he gave him this sort of big, bulky medieval armor that obviously Alan Scott created with his power ring. And how can you get this armor? You pretty much have to buy it from the broker. Technically, this armor comes from the Arcane Time Capsule, but either you have to purchase the Arcane Time Capsule from the broker, or you have to purchase the armor itself from the broker. I would strongly suggest don't waste your time buying time capsules. Just buy the armor straight from the broker if that's really what you want to have. And as you can see also, we have the green aura. We have quite a few auras. Like we have the green aura right here. You can see behind there's the green filament aura. I showed the kryptonite aura. So there's quite a few auras that we can use already to recreate a pretty nice looking Green Lantern character. And in some cases, in this case, since the armor is pretty bulky, the regular green aura is probably the better option with this armor. Obviously, Alan Scott didn't have a helmet, but for the needs of DC Universe Online, they added some sort of helmet to the armor. You don't have to use a helmet. You could just use the domino mask, and it would work well enough. Next, we have our friend Sinestro. Yes, it's easy to forget. Sinestro, once upon a time, was a Green Lantern. Until he became an evil yellow ring bearer. This is pretty darn close to the basically classic Green Lantern look. We don't have a chest piece that reproduces the classic Green Lantern look exactly. This is about as close as we can get. So again, as I mentioned before, in the past we had to wait until we were tier 5 in order to be able to recreate a Green Lantern character. But nowadays, we can just purchase the Green Lantern emblem from the broker, and we can create a Green Lantern character as soon as we get off the Brainiac ship, if we really want to. I'm cheating a bit. I'm using the back piece, the Scion of Iron back piece, because I enjoy having that emblem. It fills up the back of the character, which looks a bit empty without it. For the mustache, it's not exactly the mustache that looks like Sinestro, but it's close enough. And then we have, of course, our friend Hal Jordan. As you can see, we can get pretty darn close to our friend Hal Jordan. Of course, we could use pretty much the costume that Sinestro had just before to recreate Hal Jordan as well. But at some point, when they pretty much redesigned Hal Jordan without the short shorts on his costume, which works well enough. It wasn't too drastic a change in this case. There's a few costumes like Superman that really need the short shorts, but in the case of Green Lantern, when they decided to remove the short shorts, it still kind of worked with the character. And again, obviously, you're seeing that I'm using the Scion of Iron chest piece, but pretty much everything else you see other than the emblem and the chest and the back piece, you can get from character creation. So you can pretty much recreate this look at character creation, and then a bit later, once you get access to the broker, then you can purchase the Green Lantern emblem, and then you can have a pretty darn good looking Hal Jordan. And of course, the green aura, there's two ways to purchase it. Either you buy it from the broker, or you can buy it straight from the marketplace if you really want to. If you buy it from the broker, it's only going to be on the one character that you buy it for. If you buy it on the marketplace, you're going to have the green aura for every single characters on your account. And then sadly, our friend Hal Jordan became the evil Parallax. We can recreate a pretty darn good version of Parallax, as you can see. There's quite a few shoulders. Like we need like some big shoulders for Parallax. Parallax had those big shoulders. So here I went with the Riot shoulders, but there's quite a few. You could use the Alan Scott shoulders from Kingdom Come if you want to. Obviously, again, for the emblem, you have to get the Green Lantern emblem from the broker. For the chest piece, I went with the Flex Suit chest piece and the Flex Suit pants. So it's not exactly accurate, but it's pretty darn close enough that someone who would see you use this look could understand that you're recreating the evil Parallax. For the boots, I went with the Vengeance boots. It's one of the few pair of boots that actually goes all the way up to the mid-thigh. For the belt, there's quite a few number of belts you could use, and the same with the gloves. As I mentioned previously, eons ago, the only way we could have a nice Green Lantern emblem with our character was to use the Green Lantern Hoody. And ironically enough, in recent years, they had a storyline where for some reason Green Lantern no longer had his ring. I didn't really follow that storyline, so I'm not really sure. But we ended up having what was labeled the Hobo Green Lantern, where basically Green Lantern had this hoodie, and he didn't have his power ring anymore. What he actually had was some sort of power battery, which was pretty darn close to what you're seeing right here. I think it was some power battery that was used by Krona or something like that. Again, I didn't really follow the storyline. You should have a trench coat, obviously, but I was looking for an excuse to be able to use the Green Lantern hoodie. So if we could add a trench coat on top of that hoodie, that probably would do the trick. And again, I cheated a bit using the Spindrift shoulders. But there you can get a pretty not too bad version of the Hobo Hal Jordan Green Lantern. And also, as I've mentioned, for a long time, the hoodie was one of the few options we had to be able to recreate, to have a nice Green Lantern emblem on our character. If for some reason you cannot purchase the Tier 5 set of gear, or if you cannot purchase the emblem on the broker, if you're lucky enough to get the Green Lantern hoodie from the vault, then you could have a nice Green Lantern emblem. Again, basically the Green Lantern hoodie drops in the vault. It's a random drop. It's not that rare. I have quite a few characters that did get that hoodie. So you should be able to get it if you're lucky enough. Next we have our friend Jon Stewart. Originally we started pretty much with the classic Green Lantern costume, but at some point they gave him his own costume, which looked pretty darn close to this. This is the reverse slimline chest piece, and it's also the reverse slimline pants, but any number of pants would do the trick. Obviously, it didn't have the Scion of Iron emblem in the back, but again, I thought it looked a bit better with it. Basically, his costume at some point had very little green to it. It was pretty much a black costume with just a tiny bit of green and a tiny bit of white, as you can see. A lot of you may be familiar with Jon Stewart, mostly from the Justice League cartoon. He was the Green Lantern in the Justice League cartoon. Not sure if Hal Jordan was back at the time or if it was still Kyle Rayner. And I guess the producers of Justice League, like Alex Ross, didn't really want to use Kyle Rayner. And next we have our friend Guy Gardner. I'm using the Watchful Aura. I thought it worked. It could work really well to reproduce a nice Green Lantern character. For Guy Gardner, we do have an official Guy Gardner chest piece. Sadly, the one of the sad thing about that chest piece is that it does not support an emblem. So you can recreate Guy Gardner, sort of, but if you want to have an emblem, you're gonna have to use the Scion of Iron back piece in order to be able to have an emblem on your Guy Gardner character. And even then, obviously, the emblem is in the back, as opposed to being on the front of the chest piece. For the gloves and boots and the belt, I went with the Absolute Zero style. I thought it worked well enough to kind of look like what Guy Gardner was using traditionally. For the pants, any number of slimline pants will do the trick. So as you can see, we can recreate a pretty darn good version of Guy Gardner. Sadly, the only drawback is the emblem. And last but not least, here's our friend Kyle Rayner. The mask is pretty darn close to the original mask that Kyle Rayner was using. Sadly, there's no real way to reproduce the look that Kyle Rayner had originally in the Green Lantern comic. And ironically enough, when they redesigned the Green Lantern costume for Kyle Rayner, again, it had very little green to it. I think there was the mask, the boots, and that pretty much was all the green it had. Pretty much everything else was black, and there was this big white piece on the chest. And I think pretty much he probably had white gloves as well. Poor Kyle Rayner was he pretty much ended up replacing Hal Jordan, and a lot of people didn't really like that. A lot of people weren't happy that Hal Jordan had been replaced. So there was pretty much a cleavage in the fan base, in the Green Lantern fan base at the time. There were the people who were very angry that Hal Jordan was gone and they wanted to have Hal Jordan back, and there were the Kyle Rayner fan who were quite happy that Kyle Rayner was there. Sadly, as you saw, there's quite a few people who didn't really like Kyle Rayner. For example, again, when Alex Ross did the miniseries Kingdom Come, it didn't include Kyle Rayner. Kyle Rayner was Green Lantern at the time, and Alex Ross decided to go with Alan Scott instead of using Kyle Rayner. And the same with the Justice League cartoon. Although the Justice League cartoon probably saw that as an opportunity to diversify the Justice League group a bit. But when they did the Justice League cartoon, again, instead of using Kyle Rayner, they decided to use Jon Stewart instead. And here I'm using the Filament Green Aura, which works pretty darn good. There's a bit of orange or into the aura, but it still could work well enough to recreate a Green Lantern character. Everything you see here is pretty much available at character creation, other than the aura, the emblem, the mask, and the back piece. The mask, you have to get it. The mask, just buy it from the broker. There's the Coast City Alert that you can play and hope to get the mask from, but it's much easier to just buy it from the broker. And the same with the Alan Scott. Here he's using the Alan Scott emblem, which kind of looks like the Ion emblem that he was using at some point. And again, for the Alan Scott emblem, you have to buy it from the broker. So that's pretty much it for our Green Lantern costumes. As you can see, we can reproduce quite a few versions of Green Lanterns. There was quite a few Green Lanterns throughout the years. So whether you want to recreate Hal Jordan, whether you want to recreate Guy Gardner, Jon Stewart, Alan Scott, there's quite a few options to recreate either of those characters.
Clearly go better over here.
There's quite a few options to recreate either of those characters. And even for some of those, you can create quite a few different versions. Again, there's Alan Scott that I can recreate quite a few different versions of his costume. And also there's quite a few different pieces of gear that can be used to recreate Alan Scott. So I'll probably try to make at least a follow-up to Alan Scott. There's probably other Green Lantern characters that I could try to reproduce, although a lot of those were alien beings. So there's not that many ways to recreate the alien creatures in this universe online, but I'll see if I can come up with maybe a follow-up video with various other Green Lanterns that I did not show in this video. I guess we'll have to wait and see. So that's pretty much it for now, guys. So as always, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.